Hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us today for our Lunch and Learn session. Excited to be talking to you about these essential conversations that we are going to be having today around building for retirement and creating the retirement that you deserve. Important thing to note here is, retirement isn't just the finish line, it's another phase of our life where we should be having as many options as possible for us to do all the things that we'd love to do further down the line that we don't maybe have the time to in our working life. So let's unpack how to make smart, confident decisions with your money, whether you're 35, 45, 65, or anywhere in between. So look, I won't bore you reading off obviously exactly what we'll go through, just a little bit of housekeeping while I've got this on the screen. If you do have to jump off in today's session, or if you've missed any of it along the way, it's okay. You'll be sent out a recording in the coming days. Or if you'd like to revisit a point that I talk about that you want to dig a little bit deeper, as we will move at pace over the next 30 minutes, that's a great way to go back and dig a little bit deeper into some of the points that we talk about. At the end of the presentation, we'll also go into a bit of Q&A. So if you want to put some things into the chat box, we've also received some amazing questions in advance from those that have registered. I'll get to that at the end of the session as well. Before we get into things, I just do have to read off this disclaimer here on the screen that it's just informational purposes only what I'm talking about today. Okay, it's not tailored, regulated financial advice. How can it be? I haven't met you yet. So it needs to be, if you are getting tailored financial advice, specific to your situation. So if you do want something a little bit more specific, because we've scratched the surface well today, I'd strongly recommend that you meet with a trained financial advisor. So a little bit about myself. So my name's Justin Gauci. I'm a financial advisor and strategic coach here at Enable Me. As it says on the screen there, our role, or my role, is all about helping people get financially confident to make the most out of their situation, okay? Be the best version of themselves with their finances. And outside of that, I'm a dad of three and a sports coach, and I see a lot of similarities between the three, okay? My role as a sports coach is to ensure my teams can reach their full potential. And it's no different when I'm working with my clients or my kids. It's helping them get the best out of themselves in ways that don't feel restrictive. Okay, it needs to work to the individual that I'm working with or the team. And making sure that we reach our full potential. And in specifics for my role here, it's with people's finances. So why should we prioritize wealth? Well, I think an important thing to note here is that wealth doesn't mean greed. Okay, let's not confuse the two terms. Wealth is about options and peace of mind. Okay, it's allowing you to do all the things that you'd like to do and feel comfortable to be able to do them. It allows you to potentially stop work on your terms. Maybe it's an early retirement, or maybe it's scaling back work closer to retirement. Potentially even moving into areas that we'd love to be able to work in, but financially we just can't because it might be a passion project that pays a lot less than we are on right now. Okay, building wealth is all about creating those options. Might be about supporting our kids, as we all probably are across. It gets harder generation after generation to financially get ahead. So being able to make the most of what we've got to help our future generations could be something that's super important to you. And again, building wealth allows for that. There's obviously a pretty unstable world out there, okay? And I'm a big believer for, as I said before, the teams I coach, but also the clients I work with, is controlling your controllables. Being the best version of yourself and making sure you've got that under control means you're doing all that you can when there's a bit of instability out there, that you're protecting yourself or growing or getting the best out of yourself on a day-to-day basis while other things are going on that you can't control. And at the end of the day, retirement's the big one. Ultimately, we have to build our wealth up to fund our retirement. Okay, it's a key lever that we will need to have a strategy in place, because, as I said before, it's not a finish line. It's another phase of our life that we need to make sure we have set up well. So some stats on the screen now, okay, is around how people feel with retirement right now. Okay, so there's a survey done earlier this year, and under half feel ready for retirement. Okay, that's a damning statistic. And realistically, 44% feel ready and feel prepared, but are they really well prepared? That stat might be even worse there. Over half of us are worried about money weekly. That means we're stressed. That means we're not, we're always hearing about being present to be the best version of yourself. If we have this money worry and money stress there in the background, we can't be the best versions of ourselves at jobs, with our kids or with our family or with our loved ones, if there's this sort of burden that's just weighing us down. 70% of Kiwis expect they'll need to work past retirement age. That's not by choice. That's feeling like they have to. Growing wealth helps alleviate stress. It's less stress and more choice, so we can have that better future. It's needs to be seen as well as not just a luxury, but a bit of a necessity, so we can have peace of mind to have all the choices available to us when it comes time for retirement. So, what does financial success look like? Well, there's no one size fits all version of this. Success has to be based on your goals, your values, where you're at your stage in life. It's not an article. It's not me sitting here today to tell exactly everybody the same message of how you'll do it, because we're not robots, okay? Your own individual plans for retirement and what your financial success looks like is different to everybody else that's listening in today. The key part is we have to be intentional with what we're doing, okay? Not reactive and not just chasing other people's versions of success. Otherwise, we won't get to that best outcome for ourselves. Next up here, I'm going to talk about sort of the financial pillars, okay? The pillars to the success for having the optimal retirement plan. And I think when we think about retirement, we go straight into maybe the gold and the green sections here, but the bottom layer is critical. It's the foundation that everything else is built upon. Wealth isn't going to be built at its optimal levels with poor money habits, messy debt structures, okay? We've got to fix our cash flow and our habits and our structures around us first to get the best versions of ourselves. If we skip steps, we're not going to get that 9 or 10 out of 10 version. We might get a 4 or a 5 or a 6. We work hard to get to that retirement stage. We shouldn't have to compromise because we haven't maybe got some of the basics right along the way. So yeah, don't skip steps. It's like building a house. You need that concrete slab. It's the foundations that matter. Might seem boring, but they're essential to get those key aspects of wealth creation and retirement planning done well. Now, it's very important, and you might find this funny for a financial advisor to say, is we've got to start with you and not actually the numbers. We need to understand you, what makes you tick, and there's no right or wrong in these money personalities or approach to risk or your current position. There's just you, okay? And it's not about labeling people, it's about self-awareness. So, if we get great enjoyment out of spending money, if we are a bit of a shopper, we need to build a plan that is tailored to how you enjoy living your life. That's how you're going to consistently achieve it. If you're naturally a saver, we need to harness those strengths, but also identify that there might be some gaps in the risk of doing nothing. Might plod along, okay? And we just need to understand who you are and how you can build a plan that's going to motivate you to stay the course week after week, month after month, year after year. Now, essential to that too is understanding your current cash flow position. We need to understand ground zero and then level up, okay? Whether we're going from sinking to floating or floating to flying. If we're sinking and too much money is going out the door, we just need to get our heads above water as step one. If we are floating, well, we need to work out how we can get further ahead so we can build wealth for our retirement. And potentially if we're flying, okay, but we're a little directionless, we need a plan so we're flying in the right direction. Your approach to risk, again, another one, there's no right or wrong to this. You might be naturally conservative, a bit of a safety warden. That's okay. We need to understand what the mitigants are to de-risk your financial decisions that you make. One thing to note is making no decisions a decision in itself too. Okay, so if you are, quite risk adverse, then we need to understand what potentially some of the costs of making no decision are. For an adventurer, we aren't afraid of taking risks. We need to make sure we're building solid plans, that the returns are well thought out, but also what are the risks that are involved in that and some protections that we can layer in. If we're a bit of a dreamer, glass half full, think the universe will provide it for us. Look, it's all great, big believer in, putting things out there and making them happen. but you've got to actually make them happen. Okay, so these are all really important tendencies to understand, and there is no wrong starting point. There's just you. We then just need to make a plan that's realistic, sustainable, and you-proof. Now, cash flow is king. You might have heard that term before, if not, if it's the first time. What is cash flow? Well, it's a simple formula. It's money in minus money out. Okay, and so how are we going to increase that cash flow surplus? Well, it's maximizing the ins and minimizing the outs. Okay, how? Well, how do we minimize those outs? Well, we've got to have a plan. We've got to be able to track to it. It's got to be sustainable. Okay, it can't be a fad diet type approach to minimizing cost, because it'll go out the window 6 weeks later. We also need to be able to track it in a sustainable way. Okay, as we're busy in our day jobs. We're already putting 40 odd hours plus maybe into our day jobs. We can't make this hard work because we won't stick to it. You need to understand what your non-negotiables are. You need to understand you and what you enjoy the most. They need to be a cornerstone of your financial plan, because if we try to eliminate them, life's going to suck and you're not going to stick to it, and it's not worth the piece of paper that it's written on. Eliminating fritter, I'll touch on a little bit more detail what that means in the next slide. And once we're really doing everything we can on the money out, is there anything we can do to increase our income? So what is fritter? I guess it's a way to describe it. It's like death by a thousand cuts. It's these little bits that just go missing in our day-to-day lives that hold us back. Now, on average, we see that's between 10 to 15% people's net income. People have a mortgage. Their structure 9 times out of 10 when they come through the door is it's the biggest and the most overlooked form of fritter. Okay, poor structuring of your mortgage is just wasted interest that's gifted off to the banks who make billions and billions of dollars. Okay, we need to identify what the right strategy and structure is for you to pay that off faster. Next up, we've got sort of the supermarket trips, those extra little trips for a couple of things that always sting us 40, 50 bucks more than we thought. And maybe those extra takeaways with bad planning that we get and we don't even really enjoy that much. It was average. We could make something better ourselves, but we just don't have systems in place that allows us to have a plan to stick to. I wouldn't put it past, I'd say the averages I would see when clients come to us before working with us is there's about $100 to $200 a week of fritter money in this particular area. Now that is just through little bits regularly. It adds up to thousands of dollars a year. 100 bucks a week's over $5,000 a year. Not just in that's a big enough number as it is, but that'll be a habit that stays for the next 10 years and beyond. So these are the things we need to eliminate and get a little bit better at. Utilities and insurances, and even sort of things like, are they going to shift the dial by as much as the mortgage and the supermarket and the food? No, but it's important. It's still important to regularly review these things, maybe once every year, every second year, because we pay a bit of a loyalty tax not shopping these around. Okay, it could be hundreds of dollars, maybe a couple of thousand a year when we don't review these, and we just overpay it. The light switch still turns on the same way, whether we pay $500 for the month or $350. Okay, so doing these little things can add up and definitely add up over time. There could be some rogue subscriptions out there. I'd say most people think when I talk about fritter that it's the Netflix, it's the Prime. They shift the dial, but never as much as some of the top dot points on here. But if there are some that you aren't using, maybe it's a gym membership that's not being used or something you signed up on a deal that you're meant to cancel, yeah, do a review of them maybe once a year. It all helps. And the last dot point there around KiwiSaver structure. Long term, this can be the most costly thing. It's not going to unlock money in the here and now because you can't touch it to 65. But what it means when you are 65 and can touch it can be worth tens or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars being lazily set up there, being with a default fund. Okay. The more I was guilty of it when I first moved to New Zealand, opened a bank account, it was very easy to just have my KiwiSaver set up like that. Now, if it underperforms by 1 to 2% a year over a 20-year period, that's going to be quite costly, isn't it? So with all of these things, we got to eliminate that fritter, but it's not about sacrifice. It's just about smarter structures so you can enjoy life and actually build your cash flow surplus without noticing that there's been improvement on these things. You just see the after effect of that extra money. As I said before, it's the mortgage that's the biggest key. Okay, it's the biggest probably household cost for people that do have a mortgage is the roof over our head. The key message I want to get across here is having a strategy beats rate changes. We all get sort of hung up. One bank might drop by 0.1%. If you have the right strategy, you can beat the banks by 1 to 2%. So don't worry too much about the little movements, 0.5%, half or 0.1%, 0.2% if we're lucky. If you've got the wrong strategy, you're just going to be tied up to them for longer. And as I said before, the difference, what these things can make when you put them into real dollar terms. 30-year mortgage of $550,000, we can get that down to 10 years by unlocking a cash flow surplus and building a bit of a strategy around you can save you over $360,000 there. Okay, and even if it's about 15 years, still saving you about $280,000. So, of course, it's going to be worth it. These are 6 figures of saved interest. That's just, we can sleepwalk into paying to the banks over a longer term. So here's a little bit of a do-nothing approach to retirement and just keep working and paying off a mortgage, because as the stat sort of says there, only 38% of people between the ages of 55 and 64 are mortgage-free. For my clients, my aim is to get them mortgage-free 10 years before they retire. And this is why this diagram that's on here right now, if all people have is KiwiSaver, the fund's not going to last that long, is it? Okay, 4 or 5 years. Shouldn't be this way. We've worked pretty hard. We don't want this phase of life to be too restrictive. Now, KiwiSaver is likely not to be enough, but is it still worth it? Yes, 100%. It definitely is going to be worth it over the long term. It's deducted from your pay before you see it. If you are an employee, it's contributed to by your employer. See, if you're self-employed, there's slightly less benefit for it there, but there's still that government contribution, okay? And to be honest, even with the halving and what's coming from the government, it's still a 25% return on investment. So for the dollar you're putting in, the government's putting in 25 cents for something that's, guaranteed. They're not going to find too many better returns on investment than that with that low risk approach to it. But the important part to note is it can't be your only option for retirement savings. Some of those effects of getting mortgage-free faster I've got here on the screen. So as I said before, I like to get my clients mortgage-free 10 years earlier. You see now those funds last out to 80. Okay, so it's buying us options and flexibility. So what is that a wealth creation strategy? How do we make our funds work harder for us? Well, I would like to describe it a little bit like it's a game plan for our wealth and our life in that phase of life. It's what to invest in and when and why and for how long we need to hold these things for. The cash flow is an important part to that, understanding how we can maximize that as we've talked about. It's got to align to our life stages and our strategy. We don't want to fly blind or be set and forget in this stuff. We need to adapt our strategy with time because life will change. And when we build that strategy up, as we saw a couple of slides earlier, we got to extend the funds out to 80, which was fantastic. But if we get a really tailored specific wealth plan in place, we extend it out another 10 years to 90. This now also allows us all those nice things that we might be a little bit reluctant to do when we're a little unsure if our funds are going to last us. Okay, now we've built a strategy to incorporate all those things in here, creating the options that we deserve. As I said before, a wealth plan needs to be dynamic. Okay, it can't be set and forget, and it needs a good mix of investment types. It's not all eggs in one basket. So as it says there on the screen, diversification might seem like a fancy word, but in simple terms, it's just not putting all your eggs in one basket. Okay, it helps reduce risk. If one area of the market's taking a bigger hit and all your eggs are in that basket, then it's going to limit your options. Whereas if we're diversified, it doesn't as big an effect on us when that one particular area falls. The important other part is what works for you now, maybe in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, might not be right for you in your 60s or 70s. So always evolving as we go, because life will change. Just a really quick demonstration of balancing risk and return. Okay, obviously on the left here, we've got the low risk options. These things are important, but it's important to not, I guess, have too much in here because they actually go backwards when we factor in inflation. So we need to balance risk and return, which is all about our goals and our timeframes. Okay, so we do need some things invested in that real low risk, lower return areas when we might be needing the funds in the next couple of years. But we can't have all our eggs in that basket because over time it's gone backwards against inflation. You know, the other things that are on the screen, there are obviously a whole lot more asset classes that I haven't put on here. Some, you know, collectibles, crypto, precious metals could be useful little elements to the overall plan. They're a little bit more volatile and potentially some higher risk ones in there. They can't be part of a core strategy, but the right options depends on the goals we're aiming for and the time frame that you've got to need those funds in cash. Okay. Back to that sort of sporting analogy, as I said, being a sports coach here, you've got the famous ice hockey player, funny enough, with a basketball image on here, who made the comment, as you see on the screen. And what I sort of say to my clients and even to some of the players in my team is taking no risk is a risk in itself. Okay, and for clients' perspective, it's hard to build wealth always sitting on the sidelines. So we need to understand your tendencies and what's right for you, but we can't just sit there and wait and do nothing because, as you saw before, with the effect of inflation, those cash and term deposits don't keep up with that rate. Now, the next couple of slides is going to talk a little bit about leverage, retirement gaps, etc. A retirement gap, if it's greater than 300K, or even hearing that there's a retirement gap might be fearful. Don't be alarmed. It's normal. It's what we've got to solve for. If it's greater than 300K, we might need leverage to solve for that. How we identify this sort of thing of what we need for retirement as a rough rule of thumb, we want to understand what your mortgage-free living costs are, times that out by about 25 or 30 years. Understand you and your bucket list items that there might be, add those together, maybe allowances for different bits of repairs and maintenance on the house, car upgrades, etc. And we build what we need for retirement. And what we've got right now, you know, if we do nothing, it's likely to be a bit of a gap, and that's okay. We just need to work out how we solve for it. And leverage could be an important part. So what is it? Well, the power of leverage is explained pretty well on this screen because what you've got here is two options with 160K to invest. On the left, we're putting it into a managed fund with a net return growth rate of 10%, which would be an amazing year. To give you context, the historical 5-year average for growth funds is 9.5%, and that's gross. So that's before fees and taxes. Saying 10% net, what would it make? Make $16,000, which is great. On the right, we're saying using leverage, we could invest that into a property, borrow money from the bank and buy an asset worth $800,000. Using a property growth rate, you know, in line with the sort of the averages of 6%, the return that we make there in that first year is $48,000. Yes, the bank, and when we invest into it, we only own 20% and bank has 80%, but you get all of the return. So that $48,000 of growth in that asset value is yours, which is 3 times higher than that of the shoot the lights out version on the managed fund net return of 10. Okay, so it can be a very important lever to pull if we're trying to grow wealth. The important thing is here, as I said before, when diversifying throughout our wealth planning journey, it's not always going to be putting all the eggs into one particular basket or at all. We want to diversify our ways through it, but this is a useful visualization, I guess, to show you why we might want to do something with property because of that leverage piece. Now, it's a big gap in year one. That actually compounds as well and gets bigger and bigger over time too. So look, as touching on a few things I've already sort of said here is, you know, a wealth plan needs to give you freedom and flexibility. Okay, it needs to be movable and moving with life because life needs buffers put into it. You know, life gets messy as well. So we need to understand that we've got good resilience in place to not have to completely blow up plans when life throws a few curveballs at us. We need to have good habits and strong foundations. You know, they're a real game changer to be able to get the most out of our own situation. And then what we're really aiming for here isn't about buying Lamborghinis or chasing somebody else's success. It's about peace of mind and not just chasing somebody else's shadow, working out what it is you want to do and what's the best way and fastest way for you to get the best version of yourself. So just wrapping things up before I talk about the amazing team we've got here and a special offer for those of you that are listening in. Key couple of messages I want to get across is progress beats perfection all the time. Okay, we just need to get that a little bit better, because if we just wait for perfection, we never actually get started on these things. To unlock what you're truly capable of, we need to understand you, build the right plan for you, not just reading what you think might be right on an average basis, because we're not robots. We're not all the same, we don't have all the same tastes, goals for life. So we need to build our wealth plans and retirement plans that really talk to us and what we need. And probably the last key message I want to say is, that there is risk in taking no risk at all. As you saw before with that risk and return graph, those lower risk items, there's a risk in just staying there. That goes backwards over time, and doing nothing isn't likely to get the best versions of ourselves. So just introduce you to, the team we've got here at Enable Me. We've got 20 plus advisors nationwide. We've seen it all, I'd say, and we share some, real big passion for helping people maximize their true financial potential. That's what we get our enjoyment out of. You work hard in your day jobs. Our day job is to make your money work hard for you. And on the next screen, we've got a special offer for you to have a tailored chat with one of our amazing team, or myself, obviously. So you can see here on the QR code and the link at the top, we've got this offer until June the 30th to book in for a discounted consultation of $99. They're normally at $400. So definitely get on the QR code or use the link. And you can lock in the offer now. If you make the booking by the 30th of June, our team will work with you and finding a time that fits for us all. So we don't need to have the meeting before June the 30th. But it's going to be a best use of your time to understand what it is that's exactly right and what you should be working on next to get the most out of yourself. So up next, I might just throw to my producer, Amelia, who's been collating those Q&A questions. And I'll leave this on the screen so you can take your time jotting that down or taking a photo. So Amelia?
Yep, we've got some great questions that have been submitted. The first one is, any tips on how to calculate how much we need for retirement?
Yeah, I sort of touched on it a little bit earlier. So what I would like to do is you need to understand what your living costs are once you're mortgage free, and timesing that out by about 25 or 30, just to give or take. Then working out all the bucket list. What are some of the nice things we want to be aiming for in retirement? Probably also allowing for 10% of our properties costs for repairs and maintenance through retirement too. Is another good buffer I'd like to put in there. And also, maybe some 1 or maybe 2, depending on the household, car upgrades.
The second question is, any advice for someone who doesn't know how to start investing and is worried that they could be signing up for something that is a scam?
Yeah, it probably tells me a little bit in a good way, conscious of, risk profile is, weighing to maybe thinking something might be a scam there. So I'd probably definitely recommend get in touch with a financial advisor. Do due diligence on anybody that you're about to work with. They should be sending you through some disclosure documents and really taking your time with how you're making that decision, because it is going to be an important decision. And I think starting out, it can be daunting. So talking to people and understanding, all the different options out there are going to be a useful tool as well to do.
Our third question is, what is the best approach to spread your investment risk when your mortgage is paid off? Should I put more savings into KiwiSaver or managed funds?
Yeah, look, I don't know, obviously, the individual circumstance there, but generally speaking, I'd like to not just go straight into the KiwiSaver piece, because you might want to retire at 60 or 61. If those funds are locked away for a further 4 years, could be quite limiting. So you might be 40, 50, and in that position, be good to have that still, invested in multiple different ways. So not just maybe in the managed fund space, but well diversified. But if we are putting more into the managed fund space, I'd prefer it out of KiwiSaver so you can access it when you want to, and that might be before 65.
Our last question is, when should I consider buying an investment property if I haven't paid off all of my mortgage yet?
Yeah, look, I don't think you need to wait till it's fully paid off. The right timing is when obviously there's enough equity in the home and you've got good cash flow and borrowing power to buy a solid investment property. Not all properties are great investment properties. So working through what the right property selection criteria is for your situation is going to be super important. But yeah, you don't have to wait right till the end there. There could be potentially a whole property cycle that you've missed out on by waiting maybe that further 6, 7, or 8 years till you've fully paid that mortgage off. If you've paid off the majority of that mortgage, there's probably enough usable equity in that property to do something now if the cash flow and the borrowing power allows for it.
Thanks, Justin. Just want to remind everybody that you can always email us at info@enable.me or give us a call on the number on our website if you've got any more questions about what we do. I'll hand it back to you, Justin, to close off.
Cheers. And look, thanks for everyone who's joined us today. Thanks for your time. I hope it's, sparked a few ideas, and look forward to hopefully our paths crossing again in the future and we can start to have the conversations to shape the retirement that you really deserve. So thanks again for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.